Hello, welcome to this Computer Weekly video. I'm Bryan Glick, I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Computer Weekly. And in this video, we're going to be talking about what's involved in creating a modern digital workspace. Now this is one of a series of 4 videos that we've produced looking at various different aspects of this particular topic. And in this particular one, we're looking at the technology issues. What are the key things that you as a technologist need to consider, and the key technologies that are available to help you to build a modern office and working environment. To help me do that, I'm joined by 2 experts who've worked on this sort of area with a lot of organisations. I'm joined by John Chambers. John is the UK Sales Director for IT and Communication Services at Ricoh, and his colleague Helen Liaudin, who is an Account Director at Ricoh. Welcome, both of you. Thanks very much for coming on to talk about this. Clearly, if you're creating a modern digital workplace, the sort of environment that people are going to want to work in, to be productive in, to take advantage of all the modern sort of digital benefits that you can have. Technology is obviously key to that. But from a business perspective, why is this generally such an important thing? Why does it matter to the business to get the technology right as part of a digital workplace?
I think, Brian, technology obviously is a huge part of the budget in terms of any business, and I think the key is to use technology as an enabler. Often organisations, there's lots of new technology coming out. It's a case of really using it to enable the goals and objectives that you have within an organisation, and they really can be tightly linked to the way that you work with your people. Because technology is so closely aligned to how an experience of an employee and how productive and how smart they can work to probably deliver services to your customers or be as efficient as possible. So I think that's a really, really key element for organisations to think about. I think the other thing is, as we've got more information that needs to be shared, often for the employee to do a better job or be more productive or deliver a better service to their customers, then you've got to think out how you're going to secure that information, because we've seen lots of issues around security where you want to be in a more agile remote working organisation, but you've got to secure the information that you're delivering out to your employees.
In creating a modern workplace, obviously there's lots of different departments within an organisation that are involved, but for what we're talking about here, for the technology that underpins that sort of modern working environment, this is where we're really in the heartland of the IT leaders. For those IT managers, the people who are making the big decisions about technology, what are the key challenges for them in this area?
I think IT has changed within most businesses. The CIO, CTO, the job and responsibility they had previously and what they have now has fundamentally changed. And often, the board or from an organisation will be looking to IT to use technology to enable a particular strategy. And that's a fairly tough place to be sometimes in terms of making that work. So I think there's a real need for the CIO to be able to, or CTO to be able to look at how they get the return on the investments they've already made, because there's lots of technology. Most organisations have got a plethora of all different technology they've invested in, but really getting the return on that and really ensuring that the adoption, I think it's a big discussion point, the adoption of the technologies that they've already deployed, so that they can then empower their employees to be able to work smarter and work in the way that they need to be really effective.
Helen, John's described there a lot of challenges that probably IT leaders in all sorts of different organisations will be nodding away and agreeing with in recognition. When you're out there working with organisations to tackle some of those challenges, what do you see are the most effective things that people in IT are doing to address some of those issues?
I think you've got to sort of think about how you break down transformation, because you have operational transformation, business transformation, obviously end user transformation. And it's trying to link those 3 things together. So, you can understand from an operational point of view, but it's understanding the skills gap within the end user base, because again, the adoption is a key thing. I think a lot of business leaders will say, I've invested all of this money. Why have I not got my return on investment? And it's probably because they've not understood what their user base is capable of, where the skill gaps are.
Okay. Clearly some very important, weighty topics that people have to think about when they're going through this process. And I'm sure if you look at the organisations you work with, they're all across the scale in terms of people who have only just started to people who are a lot more mature. Thinking perhaps about some of those more mature ones, the ones who are the early adopters. What are you finding are the real key measurable benefits that they're seeing of going through this transformation? The sort of things that you could pull out and show to somebody else and say, this is where you're going to get the return on investment that you described.
With the organisations we work with, it's first of all, it's really trying to understand what they're trying to achieve, and often you really being clear about how we're going to enable the strategy they've got through technology, and that's where we see real success with customers. And I think take an example of Utilita, the energy company. Then they went from 90 employees to potentially over 2,000 in a very short space of time, and their customer base just exponentially grew. And their platforms just were not fit to be able to deal with that scale. So we work with them, to help enable their growth strategy through technology. So whether that be network infrastructure, whether that be contact center, again, front where it touched users and their customers, but also at the back end to just really nail down some processes and governance and security. So that's a really good example of a really successful organisation that's grown rapidly, and growth is often it's great, but a challenge for organisations. I think others, really around the view of simplification, especially what we are seeing with lots of organisations, especially larger ones, where they have in the telco sector, the likes of Vodafone and other customers that we have, is that the ability to try and consolidate their supplier base, both and transform their technology vendors, so they simplify it, but also then simplify their service partners. So you bring together that into a consolidated managed service, so that it allows them to focus on the things that are important to their business.
Yeah, no, there's some really good examples there, and I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching this video are listening to what you're describing there and thinking, yeah, that's what we want to achieve. But they're probably much earlier in the process. They're perhaps just evaluating now what's going to be involved in the technology transformation that they need to go through. So I'll put this final question to both of you. Helen, perhaps come to you first. If you were talking to somebody in that situation who's right at the start of doing this sort of process now, if you could give them one piece of advice or one thing in particular that they need to consider as they set out on this sort of transformation project, what would that be?
I think I mentioned earlier on the question before around the skills gap. I think change management through a process is absolutely key. It's understanding at what point you deliver out a message, making sure that message is clear. Again, that's driven from the top, that the senior stakeholders understand what the business is doing, why they're doing it, and being able to take that message out to the end users and managing that change effectively. So you get the adoption and therefore the return on investment.
Okay, and you, John, what would be your one bit of concluding advice?
I think you've got to identify the key areas around simplification of whether that be transformation or whether that be services, and look to pull those together. Most organisations haven't got just lots of headcount to do everything, so choose the things you want to do and then find a partner that can help you through both your transformation objectives and probably your services, so end to end. So make those choices, and then it allows you to use your own expertise to do what you want to focus on, and then you work with a partner to deliver the rest.
Okay, two very good recommendations. John Chambers, Helen Liaudin from Ricoh, thanks very much for coming along and sharing your experiences of working with organisations to help them transform the technology in their workplace. That's all we've got time for on this video. As I mentioned at the start, this is one of a series of 4 videos where we've been talking about things like the people issues, some of the workspace issues, and some of the process issues around creating a modern digital workplace. I hope you found this a useful way to find out about some of the technology issues in this video in particular. Thanks for watching.